I guarantee you, dollars to donuts, what's going to happen is you're going to have a very delayed result coming out of Georgia, and they're going to start claiming that because it's taking so long that the Democrats must have done something. All right, guys, we got more news on Georgia Republicans trying to ensure that election night this year is an absolute mess. So you'll probably remember last week, or I think it was last week, I did a video talking about how they've got pro-Trump election denying conspiracy theorists on the boards of elections in various states throughout the country. There's like approximately 70 of these pro-Trump election deniers that are going to be deciding the election in multiple different states, including Georgia and North Carolina and a couple of other ones. That part is scary. But what's happening now in Georgia, they just did this new rule on Friday that's even crazier, and it is guaranteed to make election night an absolute disaster. So I'll get into it in just a second, but if you haven't already, please go ahead, like the video, subscribe if you're not subscribed. It helps me grow the channel. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and talk about what the new shenanigans are in Georgia. So this is from Forbes. It says, Georgia Election Board orders hand counting of election ballots, but studies say that that's less reliable. So Georgia State Election Board approved a new rule Friday requiring all counties to hand count all ballots cast in the upcoming presidential election, a move favored by right-wing officials in the battleground state who claim that this rule prevents miscounts, though multiple studies suggest hand counting is less reliable than scanners. So, much like how the Republicans treat basically every other thing, if there's like a scientific thing that proves something, they are against it. Other key takeaways from this article: MIT released an earlier study analyzing elections in New Hampshire from 1946 until 2002, finding poll workers who counted ballots by hand were off by 8%, while voting machines had an error rate of about 0.5%, 0.5%. Okay, so that is about a 16 times greater error rate than the machines done by humans. Another thing in this article, it says Elizabeth Young, a senior assistant to Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr, a Republican, wrote a letter to the board arguing officials very likely violated state law by requiring counties to hand count ballots, according to the New York Times. John Fervier, the board chair, acknowledged this before the vote Friday and said the board was going against the advice of our legal counsel by approving this measure, adding the board does not have the authority to pass the rule, the Times reported. So, so not only is it dumb and way less accurate, like 16 times less accurate, it's probably not even legal. So you're going to see legal challenges to them even being able to try and do this hand count of elections. Okay, so like, why are they doing this? They think that hand counting ballots is going to make it so that they can go through and make sure that those pesky Dominion voting machines didn't get rigged by Venezuela to steal the election away from Trump, or whatever the fuck it was that they thought in 2020. In 2020, I don't want to go back through and relitigate everything, but the whole point of saying that, like, the election's going to be stolen, it's going to be rigged, they're going to steal it, you can't trust the mail-in ballots, was to introduce doubt. And that's exactly what's happening here as well. So their excuse for we have to hand count every single ballot in the state of Georgia, which will be millions, I guarantee you, if they do this, they will not have a decision on election night in Georgia. And if it gets close, if it comes down to all of those states and it's just, you know, a couple of states that are holding out, you're not going to have an answer of who the next president of the United States is on November 5th. You might not even have it for days after that. I don't know. But the point of this is that they want to have a way of holding up the process, which is long enough time to start introducing doubt. Now, everybody who knows how Donald Trump operates, and his whole thing was like, We should have it in one day. We should be able to have the whole election in one day. We should have the decision. This early voting, we don't like any of that. Remember that, like, having more than one day to vote just makes it easier to vote. The Republicans don't want it to be easier to vote because in elections where voter turnout is extremely high, the Republicans tend to do not well. In elections where voter turnout is low, Republicans tend to do better. And so if you make it so that it's harder to vote, that favors Republicans. Now what's happening is if you delay the process, it gives them more time to introduce doubt, which is all Trump needs in order to poison the water and make it seem like, oh, there's something fishy going on, which is so funny because this ruling is favored by Republicans. And what's going to happen, I guarantee you, dollars to donuts, what's going to happen is you're going to have a very delayed result coming out of Georgia, and they're going to start claiming that because it's taking so long that the Democrats must have done something. Now, you remember probably the last video that I did that was talking about like the election deniers in Georgia having a ability to basically decide subjectively whether or not they want to challenge the election, even though that's not their job. Like, you have officials that are just supposed to take the result of the vote count, take the unofficial results and turn them into official results. The video that I did, I can link to it up here, but it was Mark Elias saying their job literally is they're a scoreboard operator. It's here's the number of votes. Okay, that person won the election because they got more votes. What they want to do is have those people be able to challenge the results if they don't like the results. This is just another way to challenge the results and introduce more doubt by saying like, all right, we're going to hand count every single ballot, which is going to take for fucking ever. And also, according to this, it's not as accurate as machines counting it, as scanners counting it, because you've got human error. But what they want to do is they want to take a very long time so that they can be able to say something's wrong with the election. And if they drag it out further and further, it favors Trump more. The longer it drags out, it favors them more. Now, the good news is that, again, not too subtle with this, the Democrats are lawyered up. They do see this stuff happening. The bad news is that the Republicans they basically smell blood in the water. In 2020, there were chinks in the armor. There were things they weren't able to actually steal it. Trump lost over 60 court cases. So they weren't able to actually find a way to overturn the results of the election, but they got better at the idea of how do we make the rules rigged more in our favor. And so that's what this is. And I guarantee you, if any other state follows suit like Georgia's doing and they decide to hand count ballots, total disaster on election day. I guarantee you we won't have the result. And like I said, it's just one more way that it's looking worse and worse. Not like I think it's going to change the outcome of the election at all. I don't think that it's going to make it so that it's more likely that Trump gets more votes if they hand count. That's not going to do anything. I don't think anything will change in terms of the outcome of the election with the raw vote. What I think is going to happen is you're just going to see, I guarantee you, no matter what happens, you're going to see court challenges. Okay? So just be prepared for that because it's just going to be a friggin' mess in a couple of weeks. The thing that Trump needs to do isn't to necessarily win more votes. All he needs to do is introduce enough doubt that he can take this to the courts where he has a lot of right-wing judges that he thinks will be more favorable to him. Because that's how he tried to do it in 2020. So, like I said, it's going to be a mess, but we'll see how things go in a couple weeks. Just know that we knew ahead of time that this was going to happen. So prepare yourself and, act accordingly. Make sure you get out. Cat's going nuts. Make sure you get out and vote if you have a friend who's apathetic or whatever. Drag them along with you. And if you haven't liked the video already, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. What it does is it shares it out to more people. It helps me grow the channel. And if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I'm trying to hit 500 before the election. The subs count is kind of stalled out for whatever reason. I don't know why. But like I said, it really helps me out. It's totally free. It means the world to me. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.